What's going on, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. As you can see, the title of this is Black Male Privilege Real? The reason I'm saying that is because I've waited, viewed that Black Male Privilege checklist, and I thought about making a video about it, you know, when I saw it a few weeks back, but I didn't. And once again, um, I was watching I Am Athlete, which I think is a dope podcast. And the question was brought up about uh what's up, Imperfection? What's up, Devin? Hit Mr. Elmore, whatever. Whatever, Devin. And the question was brought up about who's the greatest athlete. And the young lady brought it, she said, Serena Williams is the athlete of all time. Kicks, what's popping? K Love, what's going on? Melvin, what's happening? Noah, what's going on? And she was like, of all time. And they was like, I don't know if she's the greatest athlete of all time, but but they was basically she's definitely in the discussion. What's up, Damon? And the lady was like, she's just the greatest. And the thing about it is, I understand that there's this divide where you want to ride for your team. So if you're a black man, you want to ride for black men. If you're a black woman, you want to ride for black women. I get that. But there comes a point where you go too far. And one of the points was they were talking about it. And she was like, if Serena was a black man, she would be, you know, she would be the greatest of all time. And the guys were really they understood what she was saying, but one of the guys said, no, if she was white, she'd be the greatest of all time. That's different. She's like, no, if she was a black man, y'all don't understand. Y'all have the black male privilege. So this is where this whole thing comes from. And I'm like, and I'm listening like, sometimes we are prisoners of the moment. And if Serena was a black man, would she be the greatest athlete of all time? My answer would be no. For a few reasons. Because she was like, she dominated her sport for 20 years. And I'm like, Floyd Mayweather dominated his sport for 20 years. Is he considered the greatest athlete of all time? No, he's not. He's not even considered the greatest boxer of all time, but statistically, he holds all of the records. Jerry Rice is by far the greatest football player of all time. Could be considered the greatest athlete of all time because his records are so unreachable. What's up, Frank? His records are so unreachable, it makes nobody's catching up. They look at it as an impossible feat. Yeah, Mike Tyson did his thing, but he wasn't considered the greatest of all time, the greatest athlete of all time. They brought up Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is, he's considered one of the greatest athletes of all time. But people seem to forget about something. Michael Jordan isn't. There are basketball players who have accomplished more than Michael Jordan. Bill Russell accomplished more than Michael Jordan. You can arguably say that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could be considered the greatest of all time because he's still not, nobody's passed him yet. And even if LeBron in a few years passes him in all these categories, they'll look at his finals records and be like, he can't be the greatest athlete of all time. They brought up Tiger Woods, yeah, as the greatest athlete. Like, if he would have broke the record for Masters, I could have seen that. I could have seen him. He would be considered the greatest golfer. He never be considered the greatest athlete. I don't think a golfer in general would be considered the greatest athlete of all time. And I don't think a tennis player would be considered the greatest athlete. Yeah, I'm about to get to that, Patrick. You know, my personal top pick about greatest athlete are Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders. Uh, who would I be? Who am I missing? Who am I missing? Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward. Because Charlie Ward could have been an NFL quarterback. And at the same time, he could have been a major league pitcher, if I'm not mistaken. But he chose to be a basketball player. He literally would have got drafted in 3 different sports. So, but people forget about that. But the reason this is about is because about the black male privilege, right? And when people think about the, they make this competition between black men and black women. I would never consider Muhammad Ali the greatest athlete of all time either. He's the greatest of all time in boxing. Some people don't realize that Muhammad Ali is a 6-time fighter of the year. The closest person is 3. That he's the closest person is a 3-time boxer of the year. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yes, yes, Omar. You laughing, but Bo Jackson was a Pro Bowl football player and an All-Star basketball player. I mean, baseball player. Deion Sanders is a Hall of Fame football player, and he was a good baseball player. Charlie Ward was a 3-sport athlete who race got in the way. Because people forget, it was still the 90s. Charlie Ward and Tommy Frazier didn't really get a shot in the NFL. If you think about it, that's why he didn't go into the draft. And Jordan was you could arguably say the greatest basketball player ever, but he sucked at baseball. He sucked. I can't. Carl Lewis, I don't know. I would say, what is his name? Is it real? Who was the guy? Is it? I was about Ronaldo Nehemiah. Sprinters is just a sprinter. So okay baseball player. That's a professional baseball player. Professional. So the statement was using sports as a reference at the time about how black men are privileged, and if Serena Williams was a man, it'd be a different story. And I'm like, no, because there are a lot of men who are black men who went far beyond what was considered greatness, and they still don't get the credit for it. Nobody, decades have gone by. Nobody brings up homicide Hank Armstrong. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? Few people don't even know who he is. People forget about how many brothers were actually great at something. Nobody says, Lawrence Taylor revolutionized the game of football. Revolutionized it. That's why it's so much, that's why it is what it is today. You say who? When I said homicide Hank Armstrong? Yeah, he's a boxer. One of the greatest boxers of all time. But this goes along with the privilege aspect. Is there are so many great black men that all of a sudden it's a privilege. Guys are this way because of privilege. It's not. Pee Wee Kirkland is a good. Ironically, I met Pee Wee Kirkland years ago. He's a cool dude. He had a rap label. He was out here for a time. Kicked it a little bit with him and one of his artists. But Pee Wee Kirkland was a dope boy. He could have been an NBA basketball player, but he chose the streets. So this is becoming, part of the conversation about what men are privileged to do or whatever. And what I see about this is, if I got you, Eva. Appreciate you though. Aubrey, what's happening? You know, I know the men are not, us as men, we're not um familiar with this privilege, but what I look at it as, when women talk about privilege, and black women in particular talk about black male privilege, here's the thing. Yeah, he still had his afro. Um, what it looks like to me is women are viewing men in a female framework, and not taking into consideration that we don't think and operate and move the same. Oh, Shay Lotus, what's popping? Paul, what's happening? So when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm like, no, it's not real, because women are seeing privilege. They see privileges. Now, do men and women have double standards? Yeah, you could say those double standards are privileges, but this ideology that if a black woman does something, it's equal to if a black man does something. It's like, no, it's not. It's not. I hate to break the news to you. It's not. Because the young lady brought up, she's like, and she was reaching when she said this. Serena Williams is the greatest athlete of all time, but she's also the greatest entertainer. And it was like, no, Michael Jackson is the greatest entertainer of all time. She's like, Michael Jackson, Serena Williams, Michael Jackson, Beyonce, the greatest entertainers of all time. And I'm like, and I'm listening, like, keep thinking about male privilege. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what happens when you become so enthralled in a gender war, and you try to make everything equal, and men and women are just the same, that you skip over various things. Sandman, thanks, fam. You know, this is when you skip over something. Because I'm using sports and entertainment in the beginning, but I'm gonna stretch it out to other stuff. Michael Jackson is in a different stratosphere from Beyonce. They're not even close. I could easily say Beyonce is just a knockoff of Janet Jackson. I could easily say that. Torrance, what's happening? Like that's easily for me to say. Janet Jackson sold more records. She had bigger tours. You know, she's probably got more classic songs and hits, than Beyonce. I know people are prisoners of the moment and like, she be bigger than Beyonce? Yeah. They made all Beyonce is a knockoff of Janet. People look at her as a knockoff of Diana Ross because of the group, but no, she's Janet Jackson. You know, she's Janet Jackson. Now, would Janet Jackson be considered the greatest entertainer of all time? No, because she ain't the greatest entertainer in her own family. You know, but this is why you know we make these assumptions, because if this person was a man, if Janet Jackson was a man, she'll be Jermaine, Tito, or Randy. There'll still be a Michael. It is what it is. Oh yeah, what's popping? Health nerd, what's popping? Million, what's happening? So it's like, okay, we playing this game where you know people are looking at things different. Like, oh, because this person is a woman, they're gonna get extra exaltation because you're saying that black men have a certain privilege. And I would say, if black men have a privilege in your eyes, tell me it's not earned. Because is this privilege earned or not? That's my question. Because if people think black men have privileges, did we get these privileges from hard work and good, and not even goodwill, because the country didn't have goodwill towards us. or did just somebody just give us privileges? Because a lot of this stuff goes into plays into to the premise that black men didn't do anything. I was reading the the black male privilege checkpoints, right? Checklist. And I was looking at it and I couldn't help but say, it was a college paper. And this becomes a problem where a lot of times there are young women and younger women, I like college women in college to maybe women 30 who make these allegations and accusations about men and male privilege. Raiders was popping. And it's like you don't even really know the full history. You just feel like women got slighted. And this becomes problematic because this goes into the politics. People talk about the civil rights movement. You know, they bring up how many black women were in the civil rights movement and they were in the background and they didn't get their just due as far as with accolades and recognition. And when people bring that, and it's because they're dealing with black men and black male privilege, history doesn't see it. It's because they were men. It's like, okay, if I accept your argument, then fine. Do y'all know why Rosa Parks was on the bus? Did y'all not understand that they tried that with a black man and he got lynched? But you don't remember that part of history. They decided to use a woman to do it because they wouldn't lynch her. And if I'm not mistaken, the brother that did it, that they put on a bus like that, or one of the brothers that did it, was actually a veteran, and he was in his uniform. Because I know it happened to a brother who, in his uniform, he got lynched to death, but he got lynched because he didn't want to sit in the back of the bus. But I'm pretty sure he was the guy too. So that part you skip over. When people bring up the Black Panthers, Angela Davis. Angela Davis is still alive. People forget Fred Hampton is dead. Huey Newton is dead. Now Fred got murdered, but Huey Newton, he got strung out in a bad life. They bring up Cleaver was a rapist. Okay, all right. Then they bring up, but they don't bring up Stokely. Who? Guess what? Had to wind up living in Africa. And then you don't bring up, all of the other brothers that's political prisoners. And the one sister that was a political prisoner that you know about, Asada, the brothers broke her out of prison and she's living in Cuba. So it's like, you know, hey, Damon, look, I'm just leave it. I'm saying it how they got it. That's just it. So this is where we at. Shark, what's popping? This is where we at. Ram tough, my bad. I ain't say what's happening. So it's because of male privilege that this happened. I'm not even sure if Matulu got out of. I don't even think they released like Matulu. I don't even think so. I don't even think so. But see, people forget about that part. People forget about the Panthers that got killed, who were predominantly men who got killed. You know, they, got you. Thanks, O'Shea Linux. He's still down. God, dog. You know that's where we're at with it. But we have a male, a black male privilege, which to me, I'm like, okay, all right, it's real, cool, but We don't look at that part because it's the males who open up the door for everybody. A lot of brothers lay their life on the line for a lot of different people, and that's what's going on. But that's not, that's not the issue. For some odd reason, that's not the issue. The issue is brothers are privileged, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if brothers are privileged, and when I say we're privileged, what exactly are we privileged to do? Because to me, all this has to do with is money. You know, yeah, you're right about that, Amy. Whoo, you said y'all see that, right? You know, you see that, right? You know, people talk about, and people, and even with the privilege, people seem to forget that after Dr. King was assassinated, they killed his brother too, because his brother Alfred was going to take his place. Coretta was still alive, man. People forget that part, but I guess that's, even that was the privilege of it. So then it becomes a political thing where, you know this goes to a school level. Yeah, you know. So what is the male privilege, Ricardo? What's happening, fam? Thanks. You know what's got me stuttering right now. What privileges do black men have in school and college? You know, see, there is no affirmative action for black men, but black men are privileged. So affirmative action has to do with what? Education and hiring practices. So if black males have a privilege, it's not in education and it's not in hiring. I'm about to get some hate mail. Because who's the biggest benefactor of affirmative action? White women. You know, then black women benefit because they say, I'm black and I'm a woman. So I check two boxes. So when it comes to education and employment, which we've been saying in the black community for decades, you know what? Go to, you go, the key to winning in life is getting a good education. Well, black men are not privileged, and black boys are not privileged enough to get a good education. Paul, what's happening? So, and we're not privileged enough. We are last hired, first fired. It's not black women who are last hired, first fired. So, where's the privilege in that? You know, nobody asks. Nobody asked the question. Um, and this means no disrespect. When if you use somebody like Kathy Hughes, if Kathy Hughes was a black man, do you think she would have been, they would have helped her along the way to get all those radio stations? I mean, Byron Allen is having a hard time just buying TV stations. And so if it would have been a black man doing this, you think it would have worked out the same? No. No, it wouldn't have. But people seem to forget that stuff. You know, people forget about how hard, Cold Black, the production company, how hard that is for Bill Duke to do. World Star, you cold blooded, Sean. But this goes on with the privilege. Yeah, and he definitely had black women. You know, so now it becomes okay, an issue. Well, black male privilege. Now, Here's the irony about the privilege. When you have black men in, I would say, positions to put people on, a lot of times black men put black women on. So if a black man is in a privileged position, he's normally going to hire black women before he hires black men. But if a black woman is in a quote unquote privileged position, she's not going to hire a black man at all. She might hire a white dude, a white woman, a Hispanic, but she ain't finna hire or put on a black male. It ain't finna happen. You know, I can't name it off the top of my head, Damon, but it is a black woman who has a construction company, it's $1 billion construction company that she runs. But truth be told, the construction company was passed down for generations and generations. So it was actually the men in her family that did it, and then I think they ran out of the men died off, and she inherited the company, but she had to go to architecture school or something. But she runs it now. You know, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually the company that built the African American Museum in D.C. I believe they used her company. It was like really her great grandfather's company, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But getting back to the black male privilege. See, brothers talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. But a lot of times we don't talk about the historical um, systematic racism in STEM. You know, I was looking at something and I was thinking to myself, if, like, the irony of this is, take video games for instance. I don't think the black man who invented video, uh, um, Mr. Lawson, he invented the single console video game. So, do you know how much money that's made for all these other groups of people? You know, that's them. You know, the brother that invented what was that? The stoplight, which people get mad at. He didn't invent the stoplight in America. He did. You know, he doesn't get the there is no money in that. That's them. Um, the brother who actually invented the Lewis Latimer, and I talked about that on numerous occasions. That's them. You know, because people think about Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison didn't know how to make a bulb light up. That he didn't do that. You know, Lewis Latimer did that, and then Nikola Tesla figured out the alternating current. So how much money is that? That's STEM. There was no privilege to get your ideas stolen by somebody else is not a privilege, you know. But and I ain't talking about credit. I'm talking about money. You know, CGI was built by Mike Thompson. Okay, because I know I forgot the other brother who invented the super chip for IBM, if I'm not mistaken. That's STEM. And some of y'all don't realize Robert Smith, from he had something to do with the cloud. He was the Chiefs messing up. Oh Lord. He had something to do with the cloud. If I'm not mistaken, he figured out how all the mechanisms, he put them together to make them work as a what do you call that? As a storage device. That's STEM. But he took that money that he got from that and wound up, you know, being a capitalist, like a venture capitalist or investment capitalist. You know, you know. So I'm not I'm not going to go outside of the country because when people use the privilege, they did go globally, but I'm not going to do it today. You know, and my issue with that is so the privilege is year after year getting things taken from you, and then people say, well, you got to come up with your own this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to, you know, part, a lot of things people don't realize. A lot of things, even with the postal service, a lot of the things were invented by black men. You know, it's not the it ain't just the stamp box. It's one of the machine that shifts off the mills and sorts it from one place to the next. I forget the name of the doggone machine right now. You know, but this goes on in every aspect. People, because the guy that started the Green Book, people don't remember that was basically the Yellow Pages were in America. You know, but it was black. So after that, then you got the Yellow Pages comes on. McCoy McCoy was actually the first, I think the first black man who didn't get his patent stolen. That's why because they tried to make different versions of his lubrication system, but it didn't work. So they had to use his. So he was the first one to not get his stuff stolen. Because that if all of y'all don't, if people don't take it into consideration, you know that's part of the patents office. Yeah, you know that's part of the patent office's history. That's why you can have one version of something and then somebody come out with the same thing, just a little bit different, and they have a completely different patent for it. When you got to patent something, what you got to do is you got to patent the idea. You got to patent anything that can be derived from that idea. That way, if somebody makes an offshoot of it, you got that too before you got the idea first. Sorting machine, thank you. Yeah, thank you, LaShawn. You know, this is why yeah, you got to patent it all. But this goes into black male privilege because at the end of the day, we are privileged to have to start over and over and over again. And even, the irony about that is when people complain about the quote unquote privileges of black men, what's up, Bucket? You know, people don't talk about the black men who had to start from scratch. And when I say start from scratch, business wise, start from scratch. People don't talk about those black men who had to who got their property destroyed by eminent domain. That's the privilege. The women didn't have to worry about that. The men did at the time. And now that women are they're women being very self-sufficient. They're not concerned about somebody you know running a freeway through their home or subdivision, and they can't get nothing out of it. They're not concerned about somebody, uh, a college or university just taking their land, or the military just coming through and taking their property and walking off. They're not concerned about that. You know, it's definitely a must. So now, And a lot of times, this, like I said, this male privilege thing goes to women think men and women are the same. And it's kind of weird to me because a lot of their privilege points have to do with sex. Like guys don't like. I don't think women have taken into consideration that men don't look at sexuality as using sexuality as a privilege. And I know that might be a hard sell for some people, but men ain't walking around thinking, "Oh, I'm privileged because of my sexuality." Now we could say you're attracted to us, but nobody's like walking around like, I gotta express my sexuality like no other. Like that's not a male thing, you know. Even when they were talking about the men have the privilege of disrespecting women in music because they write all of this music about disrespecting women because rappers. And I started thinking about it like it's funny how they use hip hop in particular because most of your greatest rappers, most of the people who everybody considers, you in your top 5, top 10, they weren't known for dissing women. Like that wasn't the bulk of their career. Like when you think about and Tupac had a lot of songs. Uh, Most of his songs was more so positive towards women and negative. There was a love song or a love song or I got your back type song. Wasn't really a lot of I hate you type songs, but people forget that when you look at Notorious Big, you can't say that much. Jay-Z, most of his stuff is about what? Flossing and dope dealing. It ain't about women like that. George Washington, yeah, yeah, exactly. I got you, D Weez. You know, broke like you're right. So, if anybody says somebody, oh, J. Cole, my favorite rapper, okay, well, he your favorite. Kendrick Lamar, he your favorite. You know, it's all good, Irvin, man. I was trying to hit the thing, but thanks. You know, yeah, Hollywood is definitely racist. But a lot of times people think about, okay, if you say Snoop got a good bit of records. But the irony of it is, even all of his top hits, the majority of them ain't about chicks. But, it is what it is. So now I'm trying to think about it like, okay, so who are we really talking about? You know, because when people talk about dope boys and that kind of music and rap, they're not really talking about. I mean, Kanye, nah. Jeezy, nah. Uh, T.I., nah, not really. I mean, and these people I could think of, they have songs that some women say they would be degrading to women, but the vast majority of their music is about drugs, fighting, or shooting, or then some real life conversation. And then women, like, you know, no guy wants to listen to a whole album of, you know, Too Short is the best one I got, because Too Short is the poster child for that. And there's nobody who's ever rapped who's on the level of Too Short. Two Live Crew ain't even a rap group. I mean, they're a rap group, but that's not. They never really made a song, verse, hook. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't ever really their thing. They made dance music. Two Live Crew ain't nothing but what? It's a 95 South. Florida's bass music. That wasn't rapping. But I can't think of. I'm trying to think of somebody. I'm I'm trying to think of somebody who would be considered too short. You know, I can't. The closest I could get to too short, and that's way off, would be maybe Easy. It's the closest I could get because everybody else ain't really Juicy J. Yeah, okay. So from Too Short to Juicy J. You got any other ones? Because it's the misogyny of rap, and I'm like, because nobody wants to bring up R&B. Nobody brings up jazz. You know what I'm saying? Nobody brings up blues. Nobody brings up pop. Yeah, Mr. Jody, I appreciate you saying it. Like, that's the thing. Like, I can't, you know, the men have privilege of, making rap and rap music. Well, I hate to, even with rap, men invented rap. E-Dub was popping. You know, men invented rap. That so okay. Yeah, Freaky Tales is legendary. Yeah. That's that. But I don't think there's in rap or hip hop, however you want to call it. There is no equivalent to Freaky Tales. Like there is none. Like, yeah, I don't know, Prometheus. I don't know. People talk about misogyny and all that. Yeah, they can't say E40. Nah, no, because E40 is it talks more about game. You know, E40 would talk about game, money, alcohol, and life. You know what I'm saying? Like, he bring up chicks every now and then, but you got to remember, E40 been married this whole time. You know, 40 E40 been married a good 20, 30 years. Like, people forget that about Water. Yeah, like you said, K Love. Not 40 Water. Like, that's not really, that's not his thing. You know, that is just not, you're not going to associate those two things to go together. That's the problem. You know, the Bay is interesting. 40 is a Bay. You would say I used to listen to a lot of Bay music in the 90s. So 40, Short, um, Hamo is the Bay. Nobody, the people, I don't know. You people try to get away from that. He Bay all day. Uh, San Quinn was my dude. JT the bigger figure and San Quinn, them was my dudes. Quick. I don't think. Wait, Quick from L.A. Quick ain't the Bay though. Well, did DJ Quick talk about a lot about women like that? Not really. Not really. You know, Souls of Mischief. Yeah, appreciate that. Far Side too, if I'm not mistaken. You know, what's up, Fillmore? So to me, it's like there's no like, what is the privilege in all this? Like, a lot of times, guys have earned their keep, and all of a sudden, it's a privilege because they're a man. And sometimes the ladies talk about stuff in a sense. Yeah. I was like, I thought Quick from L.A. Yeah, I had to, yeah. People had to, as a woman, you got to work twice and three times as hard as a man, and it's like, ah, I can't rock with that. There is no black male privilege because there is nobody supports black males. Like, if a black male is down on his luck, you're not finna. He's looked down on. If a black male is trying to start from scratch, you know, 9 times out of 10, he's not gonna get a hand up. He's not gonna be able to just stay home and get on his feet and start his business. It don't work like that with black men. You want these guys to be entrepreneurs, but you know, you don't support them like you support women who are entrepreneurs, especially black women. So when you want black men to be more go-getters, you got to understand that it ain't the same thing. There is no support system for a black man who's actually trying to do something positive with his life. It's just not. You know, I hear more stories of black women getting helped out than black men. You know, oh, I started this thing and then, somebody flew me here and I was putting this like and here's the irony of it. I'm gonna tell you the last great story we heard of black men supporting black men. And it wasn't even, and it was by proxy. When Denzel Washington was the benefactor for Chadwick Boseman's acting school. He didn't know who he was, he didn't know if it was a man or woman, but and I'm sure Denzel's the type of brother he don't care. Because I'm sure he did that for a lot of people. But there's what's up, B May? But there's not a system out here to, oh man, you want to be you want to do this, I'm gonna be your angel investor. I'm gonna be like, I know a lot of black women who got on because of older black men. Why is she in real estate? Oh, her mentor is a guy who was in real estate. You know, and the irony of it is, a lot of times what happens is, these women, these older guys, they're attractive. They're attracted to women. So because they're attracted to women, they want more women around them, and then they give those women a game. They don't do that to the guys. There's not a apprenticeship black man to black man. You know, that's not what happens. It's usually older black man, a younger black woman, and all of a sudden now she's working in the industry, and you're like, how did that happen? Because that's that's quote unquote black male privilege. Like, okay, I don't get your point, but whatever. What's up, Jamal? Yeah, Brothers Keeper got shut down predominantly by black women, ironically. You know, and that's the thing. Like, us guys are privileged to do this and do that, and it's like, I can't say that. I can't say that. You know, even with this Breonna Taylor situation, I think slowly but surely, black women are coming to a realization, you wanted to be like black men so much. This is what's this is happening now. The only thing left is, really nothing's left because they vilified the lady in her death. So really nothing's left. It started with Sandra Bland, but now this is an outright case where something was wrong, and now it's like, oh. But even with that, when you deal in American society, black women will talk about black women's death and say her name. They say the same thing about the black men, say his name. But when we talk about um, systematic injustice and systematic racism in America, when black men aren't even in the room, they say it happens predominantly to black men. What I mean by that is, see, black women don't say it normally. You know, what is it that Charles Barkley said this time? Because he said a lot of stuff. I don't agree with what he said about the he shot at the cops, because Charles Barkley would have shot at the cops if somebody just broke his door down. So I'm not a fan of what he said, because I know he's full of it. Because if somebody broke his door down in the middle of the night, he'd have shot at him too. And everybody know Charles is like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I do know about the other situations is, when you hear white people talk about racism, they say predominantly happens to black men. That goes white men and white women. Hispanics talk about racism. It predominantly happens to black men. That goes with Hispanic men, Hispanic women. When Asians talk about racism, they talk about how it happens to predominantly black men. When I've heard, Arabs and Middle Easterners talking about it, it's the same thing. They don't say it happens to, systematic racism happens to black women on the same clip that it happens to black men. They don't. You know, I don't, for me, I don't agree with Chuck, because, you know, if I'm not mistaken, the police lied to get the warrant. So, all bets is off after that point. If you got to lie to get a no-knock warrant in the first place, and then somebody died, and it comes out that you lied to get the warrant in the first place, that's absolutely murder. Because you wasn't, because you got even getting a no-knock warrant was unlawful. It was based in a lie. But that's what it is. No, her death can't be compared to George Floyd's. It can't. It can't. Just because it was that it was filmed. Anything on film is going to always be looked at differently than something that was not on film. You know what I'm saying? That's why people talk about, the Holocaust versus slavery. The Holocaust was on film. That's why people look at the civil rights movement like, because it was on film. That but that goes with all of this stuff. That becomes a problem to me. The lawsuit's already over. What's up, Sean? You ain't gotta motivate sons. You just you make them hands on. Look, let me tell you something, health nerd. Don't nobody do 4-year surveillance on nobody. Don't nobody do 4 years of surveillance on somebody. If you that means you watch somebody for 4 years and you couldn't. That screams incompetent. You don't watch somebody for 4 years and the best you can get is a no-knock warrant to the wrong address because the person you're looking for ain't there. That means you're a complete utter idiots. That don't make sense. I've been watching you for 4 years and you connected to this person, but I'm at the wrong house where he at. Like, nah. They don't even watch cartels that long. And you know what? Before I said that, I had to ask somebody like Officer Faulkner, but if they watch cartels that long, because they, in my opinion, they don't. You don't watch if you can't build a case in a certain amount of time, they gonna move on to the next case. That's how it goes. That they don't just stick around. Oh man, that doesn't make sense. But I'm gonna leave it at that. So y'all have a good evening. One love to all y'all, but I got to go. Y'all take care. Catch y'all the next time. Peace.